Imagine John, a Western man in his mid-30s, with a gentle face that carries the subtle marks of life's routine stresses. He's sitting in his modest living room, the remnants of a staycation surrounding him, a stack of unread books, a half-finished model airplane kit, and a cold cup of coffee. His holiday at home was meant to be a break from work, a respite, but it only served as a reminder of what awaits him. John's life revolves around a demanding job, the kind that drains more than just time. He works long hours in a cubicle, under the harsh buzz of fluorescent lights, constantly juggling deadlines and dealing with office politics. Every day, he feels like he's wrestling with an invisible force, one that saps his energy and joy. At home, John is a devoted family man. His wife, a kind-hearted and understanding partner, often finds herself trying to lift his spirits. They have 2 young children, a boy and a girl, both brimming with energy and innocence. John's heart swells with love for them, and it's this love that keeps him anchored in his grueling job. Providing for his family is not just a duty, it's a deep-seated commitment that he takes seriously. But there's another side to John, one that dreams of a life filled with creativity and passion. He envisions himself as a successful writer and content creator, sharing his thoughts and stories with the world through blogs and YouTube videos. In these dreams, he sees himself sitting in a quiet room, sunlight streaming through the window as he types away on his laptop, completely engrossed in his craft. These dreams are his escape, his little windows of hope. However, as his holiday ends and the reality of returning to work looms over him, John feels a heavy sense of dread. It's as if the walls of his home, which have been a comforting sanctuary, are now closing in, reminding him of the monotonous cycle he's about to re-enter. The contrast between his dream and his reality is stark, and the thought of stepping back into his work life feels almost suffocating. John stands up, glances around his living room, and lets out a deep, contemplative sigh. He knows that tomorrow, the same routine awaits him, but deep down, a flicker of hope remains, a belief that maybe, just maybe, there's more to life than this endless cycle of work and fleeting holidays. One late evening, as John was aimlessly scrolling through his phone, his eyes, tired from the blue light, stumbled upon an article titled Advaita Vedanta, The Path to Inner Peace. The title alone, like a whisper of a distant promise, caught his weary attention. He clicked on it, not knowing that this simple act would mark the beginning of a profound journey. As he read, John discovered that Advaita Vedanta was an ancient philosophy rooted in the idea of non-duality. It proposed that the self is not separate from the ultimate reality, offering a perspective where the individual ego dissolves into a universal, undivided existence. This concept, so starkly different from his everyday struggles, intrigued him deeply. Intrigued and somewhat perplexed, John found himself diving deeper. Night after night, when the house was quiet and the children were asleep, he would explore more about this philosophy. He read articles, watched videos, and listened to podcasts, each piece of information like a puzzle piece fitting into his restless soul. The teachings of Advaita Vedanta spoke of finding peace not by changing the external world, but by understanding and transforming the inner self. For John, this was a revelation. The philosophy didn't just propose escaping from life's duties or challenges, but instead offered a way to view them from a different perspective. It suggested that the turmoil he felt wasn't caused by his job or his responsibilities, but by how he perceived and reacted to them. The more he learned, the more John felt a sense of calmness enveloping him. It was as if he was slowly being released from a tight grip he didn't even know he was under. He started practicing mindfulness, meditating, and reflecting on his thoughts and reactions, trying to see the unity in his daily experiences rather than the divisions and conflicts. As days turned into weeks, John's exploration of Advaita Vedanta became a beacon of hope, a guiding light. It was not just a philosophy he was studying, it was becoming a way of life, offering him a sense of balance he had long craved but never knew how to achieve. In the quiet moments of introspection and learning, John began to see a glimmer of something new, a path to inner peace amidst the chaos of everyday life. As the dawn of a new day broke, John, now armed with the insights of Advaita Vedanta, stepped into his office with a slightly different gaze. The once oppressive walls of his cubicle seemed less daunting, the glare of the computer screen less harsh. He wasn't just going to work. He was embarking on a day of practicing a new philosophy, a day of seeing the world through a different lens. John began applying the principles of Advaita Vedanta to his job, viewing his role and responsibilities not as burdens but as parts of a larger, interconnected reality. He imagined his work as a dance of energy and effort, where his true self was not the stressed man, buried under papers but an observer, a witness to the ebb and flow of life's experiences. He started practicing detachment, a core tenet of the philosophy. This didn't mean he stopped caring about his job or became negligent. Instead, he learned to let go of the stress and anxiety that came with it. When a deadline loomed or a conflict arose, he reminded himself of his true, unchanging nature, separate from the temporary upheavals. This detachment didn't make him aloof. Rather, it gave him the clarity and calmness to handle situations more effectively. And then, something beautiful began to happen. As John found himself less caught up in the stress and more present in the moment, he started noticing joys in small, everyday experiences at work. The way the morning light fell across his desk, the brief, friendly chats with colleagues by the coffee machine, even the satisfaction of solving a complex problem, these moments began to shine brighter in his day. He smiled more, not a forced smile, but one that reflected a genuine lightness of being. Colleagues started noticing the change in him, the sense of peace that seemed to emanate from him even in the midst of chaos. John found that this new approach didn't just make him happier, it made him better at his job. He was more focused, more creative, and more collaborative. Through the teachings of Advaita Vedanta, John was learning to live in the world, fully and joyfully, without being consumed by it. Each day, he walked into his office not just as a man going to work, but as a soul on a journey, finding balance and beauty in the midst of the mundane. John's days began to follow a new rhythm, a delicate balance between the demands of his job and the pursuit of his passions. He continued to work diligently, but now there was a newfound harmony in his routine. After work, instead of succumbing to the exhaustion, he would eagerly turn to his true calling, writing and creating videos. In the quiet sanctuary of his home office, John would sit down, his fingers poised over the keyboard, ready to pour his thoughts and experiences into words. The screen in front of him transformed from a mundane monitor into a gateway to his dreams. Each word he typed, each video he edited, was a step closer to the life he yearned for. Applying the principles of Advaita Vedanta, John found a reservoir of calmness and focus within himself. He approached his creative work with a sense of detachment, not fixating on the outcome, but immersing himself in the process. This mindset allowed him to create content that was authentic, heartfelt, and resonated with his growing audience. In his videos, he spoke not just as a creator, but as someone on a journey of self-discovery, sharing his learnings and experiences. His viewers could sense the sincerity and depth in his content, and this authenticity became the cornerstone of his growing digital presence. As weeks turned into months, John's online platforms began to gain traction. His blog posts started receiving comments from readers who found inspiration in his words. His YouTube channel's subscriber count steadily climbed, each new subscriber a validation of his efforts and a sign that his message was resonating with others. This gradual success in his digital ventures brought a new kind of joy to John's life. It was not just the joy of recognition, but the fulfillment of sharing a part of himself with the world. His evenings and weekends, once spent in the dread of the coming work week, were now filled with purpose and excitement. John's journey was no longer a solitary one. He was building a community, connecting with people who shared his interests and values. His job, once a source of unending stress, now felt more manageable, as he had something to look forward to, a passion that fueled his spirit. In this delicate balancing act between his job and his passions, John found more than just success. He found a sense of wholeness, a harmony between his responsibilities and his dreams, all under the guiding light of Advaita Vedanta. In the midst of his evolving journey, John encountered a week at work that tested every fiber of his being. Deadlines clashed like thunderstorms, meetings lined up like dominoes, and the incessant buzz of his email felt like a swarm of bees around his head. This week was not just another hill to climb. It felt like a mountain looming over him, casting a shadow over his newfound peace. As the stress mounted, John felt the old, familiar tendrils of fear and anxiety trying to take hold. But this time, he was equipped with more than just his will to endure. He had the teachings of Advaita Vedanta and the practice of meditation. Each morning before the chaos of the day took over, John would sit in a quiet corner of his house, his legs crossed, his back straight, and his eyes gently closed. In these moments of stillness, he would focus on his breath, feeling the air fill his lungs and then release, a natural rhythm that anchored him to the present. This daily meditation became his sanctuary, a place where he could retreat and find his center amidst the storm. As he meditated, John reflected on the principles of Advaita Vedanta. He reminded himself that his true nature was beyond the transient anxieties and fears. He visualized his worries like clouds passing in the sky of his consciousness, present but not permanent, observed but not owned. This practice helped him to detach from the immediate pressures, to see them as challenges to navigate, not threats to his existence. Throughout the week, whenever he felt the grip of stress tightening, John would take a moment to breathe deeply and realign with this inner sense of calm. He noticed that his reactions to problems were more measured, his solutions more creative, and his interactions with colleagues more compassionate. By the end of the week, a realization dawned upon him. The fear and stress he felt were not dictated by his work. They were products of his mind. His job had its demands, but the turmoil he experienced was often amplified by his own thoughts and attitudes. With this understanding, John began to approach his work with a new mindset. He acknowledged the challenges, but refused to let them define his state of being. This week, which began as a daunting ordeal, turned into a profound lesson for John. He learned that overcoming fear and stress was not about changing his external circumstances, but about changing his internal perspective. With the wisdom of Advaita Vedanta and the practice of meditation, he had found a way to navigate life's highs and lows with a steady heart and a clear mind. As the seasons changed, so did the landscape of John's life, particularly in the realm of his digital endeavors. His blog, once a quiet corner of the internet, began to bustle with activity, like a cafe that suddenly becomes the neighborhood's favorite. His YouTube channel, which had started as a personal diary of sorts, transformed into a gathering place for a community of like-minded souls. Each new post John made, each video he uploaded, seemed to resonate more deeply with his audience. Comments poured in, not just as text on a screen, but as echoes of connection and appreciation. People from different parts of the world shared how his words and stories had touched their lives, had given them something to ponder, or had simply brought a smile to their day. In these interactions, John found an unexpected fulfillment. Creating content was no longer just a hobby or a potential escape route from his day job. It was a means of touching people's lives, of sharing a part of himself with the world. The joy he derived from this was distinct from any professional satisfaction he had known. It was deeper, more personal, and infinitely more gratifying. Balancing his job and his passion projects became less of a struggle and more of a dance. He learned to weave his work commitments and creative pursuits into a cohesive tapestry of daily life. His job provided the structure, the means to support his family, while his writing and videos offered a space for expression and connection. This newfound peace was not just a result of his growing success in his side hustles, it was also a testament to the inner transformation he had undergone. The teachings of Advaita Vedanta had not just helped him cope with stress, they had reoriented his entire approach to life. He began to see his job, his writing, his videos, not as competing forces, but as different facets of his journey, each enriching in its own way. As John's digital platforms continued to grow, so did his sense of purpose and contentment. He had found a way to harmonize his need to provide for his family with his desire to pursue his passions. This harmony was not a static state, but a dynamic balance, one that he navigated with mindfulness and gratitude. John's story was evolving, not just in the content he created, but in the life he was living. His journey was a testament to the power of inner peace in transforming one's outer world, a reflection of how fulfillment can grow from the integration of work and passion. A pivotal moment arrived in John's journey, one that shimmered with the promise of change. His side hustles, once modest streams of creativity and income, swelled into significant tributaries. His blog was attracting sponsorships, and his YouTube channel was not just a community hub, but also a source of substantial revenue. This growth was not just numerical, it was a sign of the impact and value his work had in the digital world. Amidst this success, John found himself at a crossroads. The once distant dream of leaving his day job and fully embracing his passion for writing and content creation was no longer a distant possibility, but a tangible, achievable reality. This thought, exhilarating yet daunting, brought with it a whirlwind of considerations. Quitting his job meant stepping away from a steady paycheck, a predictable routine, and a sense of security. It was a leap into the unknown, a trade of the familiar for the potential of something more fulfilling, yet uncharted. The decision weighed on him, a mix of excitement and apprehension. In these moments of contemplation, John turned to the teachings of Advaita Vedanta, which had become his anchor in times of turmoil and uncertainty. He meditated, seeking clarity not from the outside world, but from within. He reflected on the idea of non-duality, the understanding that his true self was beyond the fear and uncertainty, beyond the labels of a job or a creator. Through introspection, John realized that his fear of quitting his job was rooted in his identification with it, in the belief that it defined him. Advaita Vedanta taught him that his essence was unchanged by his profession or his passions. This realization brought a profound sense of freedom. He understood that his decision should not be based on fear, but on a conscious choice about how he wanted to live his life. Equipped with this insight, John approached the decision with a newfound sense of peace. He weighed the practical aspects, like finances and family responsibilities, with a clear mind. He discussed openly with his wife, seeking her perspective and support. Finally, after many nights of reflection and days of heartfelt conversations, John made his decision. It was not just a choice about his career, it was a choice about the kind of life he wanted to lead, the kind of person he wanted to be. With the teachings of Advaita Vedanta guiding him, John chose to step into the new chapter of his life, not driven by fear, but propelled by a deep sense of purpose and trust in the journey ahead. The day arrived when John, with a heart full of hope and a mind clear of doubt, bid farewell to his job. It was not a dramatic exit. It was a quiet, dignified transition, marked by heartfelt goodbyes and deep gratitude for the years that had shaped him. As he walked out of the office for the last time, he felt not just the closing of a chapter, but the beginning of a new, exciting narrative in his life. Fully embracing his role as a writer and content creator, John devoted himself to his passion with a vigor that was both liberating and exhilarating. His home office, once a refuge for evenings and weekends, became his creative studio, a place where ideas flowed freely and where his voice found its full expression. In this new chapter, John's days were a blend of disciplined work and creative exploration. He wrote with a depth and authenticity that resonated even more with his audience. His videos were not just content, but stories, narratives that captivated and inspired. The boundaries between work and passion, which had once seemed so rigid, dissolved, leaving in their wake a life that was more integrated and whole. Living a fulfilling life, John found a peace that was pervasive and profound. It wasn't the absence of challenges or the ceaseless flow of success. It was an inner tranquility, a steady undercurrent that remained regardless of the external circumstances. This peace was the gift of Advaita Vedanta, a philosophy that had become a way of life. John's journey was not just about changing careers, it was a transformation of his entire being. He learned to live in the present, to find joy in the process, and to understand the transient nature of both success and failure. His life became a reflection of the non-dualistic principles he had embraced, a life where work and passion, family and personal aspirations, the material and the spiritual, coexisted in beautiful harmony. In this fulfilling and peaceful life, John discovered something invaluable, that the true essence of living was not in the external achievements or recognitions, but in the quiet, consistent alignment with one's inner self. Thanks to the teachings of Advaita Vedanta, John didn't just find a new career path, he found a new way to experience life, rich in depth and meaning. Thank you for listening. If this was of any value to you, please like, share, and subscribe to become wise by listening.